Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Joustra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're going to be talking about how to make your home safe for seniors and people with disabilities. And we're going to be talking with Alfred Rochon, who is an accessibility assessor, business owner, president and CEO of Accessible Places Incorporated. And their slogan is A Place for All. Hi, thanks for joining me.
Gabriella, how are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
Okay, thank you.
Before we get going and talking about our interesting topic, I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And so do you mind introducing yourself in a bit more detail?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm an accessibility assessor, which means that I go and do assessments in either a residential situation or a commercial situation. We do an assessment of the things that people would need to access their home or their business properly, so that for people that are seniors or people with disabilities would not have difficulty in their workplace or their space at home.
That's great because something that I don't think about often, but you know, the places that we work and live, they're not always accessible for everyone. And I think that needs to change. But we will be talking about that in a bit more detail later on in our interview. But before we do that, we're going to do a section we call Have You Met Alfred, where we get to know you in a bit more detail. So do you have a role model?
Well, I had to think about that. And the best that I could come up with is the Rick Hansen Foundation and the work that they do. They were very, very beneficial to me in my situation to retrain myself to do some assessments with them in conjunction with them. And what I do what I did is had a full training course through them. And I was eventually certified by the CSA group, which is Canadian Standard Association. And that's the work that I do. Their role model is ideal because Rick Hansen is in a similar situation that I am. He had an accident when he was a young man, and he became paralyzed from the waist down. And he has been totally confined to a wheelchair. And similar to myself, I am still in a wheelchair after a stroke. So, looking at his life and the journey that he followed gave me a lot of inspiration because of all the things that he managed to accomplish. He had an amazing world tour where he was called A Man in Motion, where he was going in his wheelchair across the world in so many different countries. So that was a big inspiration. That somebody that has disabilities can move forward. And as for me, it was an inspiration as well. And I have been able to concentrate on the positive side of life and the things that are happening around me instead of focusing on the negative.
Whereas, focusing on the positives, you obviously need, I guess, to be aware of some of the negatives, but keeping your focus on the positives mean that you can keep going forward. That's really inspirational. And speaking of inspiration, did you complete any courses that have inspired you?
Well, as I said, the recanson course, of course, and I've also taken a certification with Age Safe Canada to do assessments specifically in the homes of people with seniors especially, but people with disabilities to improve their situation at home and to be able to, to focus on those situations, those things. But
So, moving on to our topic for today, we like to start off every podcast with a definition of what household management is to you, so that we can get a gauge of what's important for you. So, how do you define household management?
well, household management the definition has changed a great deal over the years, I think, because when I was growing up, it was just a way of life. Okay, we weren't concerned about that. But here in today's world, we have all these busy schedules to deal with, and having home management is an important part. And you need to reach out and organize all the things in your lives to make things better. And being organized is definitely the way to go.
And are there any misconceptions about household management?
The misconception that people have, especially, is dealing around a stay-at-home parent that would be in the environment. They think that today people are staying home to manage their home, but it's not the case anymore. There's so many things that people do, and they're working, and they're having life and having sports and doing all these things that are keeping them extremely busy. So having these skills is very crucial, and to focus on that is very important. And that, I think, is most is misconception.
Certainly. I know that some of the parents I've spoken to and that I know, their kids have got such busy schedules. One parent's just shuttling them around between various activities, and they don't have any time to be at home, keeping everything managed, doing the washing, doing the cooking. And I think it's both good and bad. It's great that kids get to do all these different activities, and also adults get to do all these activities, but we still need a place to live, a lovely place to live. So we'd also like to, start off some definitions of what home safety is, and why it's important.
Well, home safety is a big part of all of this. When you're a senior or someone with disability, it magnifies the importance of safety at home. There's so many things that could go wrong. And a lot of times people don't realize the changes that people go through, especially in this situation. There's so many things that can be a problem. Just a matter of having clutter around the house is an issue. So you have to make sure that you are keeping things in place, that you're doing things properly at home to be organized. There's there's things that could prevent you from having problems. There's hazardous materials around you. You could have problems lifting and transferring from one place to another. You could have issues with when you're cooking. You could have you could have all kinds of other things, such as smoke and carbon detectors could be something to look into. There's the things that come to mind are there's so many things that need to be looked into to make sure that these situations don't get worse.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, so home safety is a problem for everyone, I guess, who has a home, or everyone. So for things like clutter, things like, kitchen safety. I mean, I've certainly seen a few fires in my mum's house in the kitchen. Luckily, nothing went wrong, but it can be a danger for everyone. But you're saying that for people with disabilities or seniors, it's a bit more of a risk for them because of, so why is that?
Well, you have problems with vision, you have problems with hearing,
Mm-hmm.
you have different disabilities that could accentuate the issues. Seniors have that, and so do people with disabilities. The importance of looking at the things around you and is what we do is when we assess a home. We look at all the features around, everything from the position of a wall outlet and where it would be best used, and things of that sort. Or we look at carpets and rugs, and we look at different options, for people going through the home, as far as a placement of furniture, and we look at door locks, and we just look at all kinds of different areas.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you said that your job is as an accessibility assessor, and that's what Accessible Places does. So those are the types of things that you're looking for are, power outlets, carpets. So yeah, who are using these types of services? Just people with disabilities and seniors?
Well, it's fairly new in today's world. It's similar to what we discussed about home management. Times have changed. So we are trying to make people aware of the importance of looking at their situation and having that proper assessment, because especially seniors, as they are getting elder in their years, they need to be prepared to transition into that space. And the things that we do is called age in place. And it's something that we call that because the senior resident is hoping to stay in their home as long as possible without having to be transferred into a nursing home or something of that nature. So the age in place is a term that was developed from that. people need to realize that, as I said, things are changing. So we look at many different areas. We go right from outside as you come in, the driveway, the garage, all those things, because as you're having your life, living your life every day, you go into all these places, and there are certain things that definitely need to be addressed. And we talked about clutter. Clutter is very important. If you can keep your floors open so that there's at least a traffic pattern throughout the house, so that you don't have clutter in any of those areas, so that you can easily maneuver through the rooms, and so that you don't trip and that you don't fall, which is an important part of all this. So we look at a lot of different areas.
Okay. So yeah, what are some other areas that you look at? So you've mentioned clutter, but what are some other common changes that you make to a lot of houses, or that you see as problems in the houses that you assess?
Well, an important part is the lighting. That's very important for most people, especially people in early that have vision impairment, but also with seniors have harder time seeing, and so it's important to have proper lighting. The surfaces that we have around us as we travel from one room to another need to be flat and free of any
Steps or bumps?
yes, or that sort of thing. I'm trying to find the right words, and they don't necessarily come when I want them. But there's those things that we need to do. Doorways need to be wide enough, because someone with a disability could be in a wheelchair or walking with a walker, and they need enough space going through rooms to be able to function and to be able to proceed safely through the house. There are so many things that need to be addressed. There are problems normally in the kitchen where there's all kinds of changes and upgrades that need to be done if you are in a wheelchair, or you're trying to be able to reach all your different appliances, and all these things need to be reassessed. When you go into a washroom, there's things as well that need to be in place there. Grab bars are usually an important part, so that you don't have, so you don't slip, or you have a way to hold on if you are moving on a wet floor, or any things of that nature. So important things that an assessment makes a huge difference.
And it certainly seems like there's so many different things to think about, and it all depends on what your abilities and your disabilities are. So that's why having a home assessment is so important, is because you might miss something if you don't usually do this. So after you have a home assessment, what are some things that you can do? You mentioned grab bars, but how easy is it to, install some of these things?
Well, some things are easy, some things are not. It depends. There's different things that their space will allow. You may have a small space, and then you are limited on spaces, on changes in your space. You may have lack of funds to make these spaces, to make the changes needed. There's a lot of things that can come up, but there's as far as doing renovations, it's still usually less expensive than to change your environment and go into a nursing home or going to a separate facility where you are. It's much better and much more enjoyable as well for the person to stay in their home as long as possible.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that it would be cheaper to do the renovations than to move into an assisted living situation. That's interesting. And obviously, yeah, much nicer to have, the place that you've lived for a while, with all your memories than to go into some facility where you don't know anyone and you have to learn a whole new system.
We're fortunate here as well. In Canada, we have some help from the government, and as far as having some renovation grants, so it helps to get these things put in place.
Oh, that's very good. I guess it'll be up to our listeners to find out what sort of grants and subsidies are available in their areas. But if you are in Canada, there is something available for you if you're looking at something like this. And that also addresses a misconception I think that I had, which was that, renovating the home would be expensive, or that, you needed a certain type of home, a large home that you can renovate. So you're saying that some things are doable, if you don't want to do massive renovations. Is that correct?
Yes, there is. There are so many things that can be done that are just simple renovations or simple changes. Sometimes it's just a matter of placing things in a different place. It can be that simple. So,
Okay.
sometimes it's just small things like changing a door handle to make it easier for a person with dexterity issues to try to be able to open the door properly. There's a lot of small things, but the major renovations are usually a bathroom renovation or a kitchen renovation, and in any size space you have those, so you can easily make small or more extensive renovations if needed.
And I guess if required, you can start off with, the bathroom or the kitchen and then move to the rest of the house if required.
Well, that's where an assessment comes in. If you know what is needed, you can prioritize and see which way it is best to proceed. Because if you're in a home and you're going to tackle large renovations, it can mean displacement for a while. It can mean a lot of other things. But starting with the small things gives you the opportunity to see how things are going to be before you actually go forward with the larger renovation.
That's a great point.
But
we seem to have covered quite a few of the questions in the interview. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about? So did you want to talk about some of the injuries, or are you happy to move on to, because you had some really great points about, maintaining smoke detectors, carbon monoxide. Did you want to talk about that type of thing?
Okay, well, what I would like to maybe mention a little bit about the
Mm-hmm.
injuries. First of all,
Okay,
um,
sure. Okay.
falls are the most important part of
Okay.
being at home
Sure.
because so many seniors, especially, will fall. Um,
Mm,
I This is important because without the grab bars in place and without the clear floors, those are the most important things to look for.
okay.
Um, there's
Okay.
also other issues when you are at home. Dealing with cooking, for instance, you'd have you could
Mm,
easily get burnt because you're not watching
mm,
or you're not used to doing it yourself. Well, there's burns. You can get cut very easily. You could be walking and there could be a piece of furniture that has a sharp corner, and you can hurt yourself on the corners of furniture. You could slip or trip over them. There's all kinds of things that you need to also be aware of. Is that medicine cabinets are important to look into because seniors um, may not always know what they should be taking and when. And so they could overdose. They could take the wrong medication thinking it's a different one. So things like that.
mm.
Medicine cabinets should be locked if you have someone else that is managing in the house with you. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
issues that can be done to improve those things.
Mm-hmm. So, so you're saying that falls are a really big contributor to injuries in the home. So you mentioned, grab bars, carpets, non-slip mats. Um, are those the types of things that you need to look for when you're trying to avoid falls?
Yes, definitely. That's
Mm.
what I was
Mm-hmm.
referring to. With all these,
Yeah.
um, they prevent trip hazards. But
Mm-hmm.
as you say, clutter will always be a problem. If you have shoes lying in the way, it would easily, as you turn, you could not see them and trip over them. There's a lot of different issues there. And
Mm.
we're trying to avoid falls. We're trying to avoid uh, hospital visits, you know, and being injured because seniors especially have problem with that.
So I imagine that a lot of what you're looking at when you're assessing a home is to avoid injuries and problems at home. So, what are some common injuries that we're trying to avoid when you improve the home?
Well, as we said before, falls are they're a very large cause of injury in the home. So falls is the most important because if a patient falls or a senior or someone with a disability falls, they could break bones, they could have head injuries, they could have a lot of different uh, hurt, or they could get hurt in so many different ways. Um,
Mm.
there's so falls is definitely the uh, main situation. There's a lot of other things that can be done as well. The You have to be careful of in the kitchen so that seniors are not getting burnt as they're
Hmm.
trying to cook something for themselves. So it's important to have things in place to prevent burns. In the kitchen as well, you can get cut very easily. Having knives and sharp objects away from the from you when you're actually working in the kitchen is usually very beneficial. There's a lot of things that should be overlooked or should be considered. In the bathroom is another issue where injuries could happen. You have all this medication usually and different kinds of products, cleaners and whatnot, that could be in a washroom. So for people with disabilities or seniors, they could easily can get confused as to what they're using all these products for, and they could have issues with medication and having poisonings or having overdoses because they took the wrong medication or it took them too often. There's also problems with electrical products that you could have fall into a sink full of water or anything of that sort. So there's a lot of things that you could get injured with. It's important to keep those in mind when you're doing an assessment.
Mm-hmm. So, say with the medications, how do you prevent people from, taking too much of a medication or mixing one medication with another medication?
Well, there's different ways that could be resolved. There are ways. Well, first of all, you could have things under lock and key. But if a person is alone in their home, it makes a big difference than if someone has a caregiver or somebody to help them take their medication. So there's you have to look at the situation and how people are affected. To take medication, I don't know if you have those in other places, but we have containers to separate medication. So that would
dosette boxes?
Something like that. So that could be helpful. There's a lot of other types of ways of doing it. For myself, I just need one container just to remind me that I've taken the medication that I needed to take that day. But other people may have a different approach. And we have to, everybody is different. So you have to look at all all the difficulties that they might have when they're trying to do something.
I actually work in a pharmacy, and we have, we call them Webster packs, where it's like a week's worth of medication packed up for people if they take multiple doses every day. But a problem that some of our patients have is they're very hard to get into. So we provide these little plastic pieces so they can punch through the plastic and actually get the medication. And so I find that quite interesting, that we have to find all these solutions for, we solve one problem, but we create another problem, and then we have to find a solution for that problem again. So there's, and what about in the kitchen? You did mention that, there's, a lot of hazards in the kitchen, burns, cuts, that type of thing. What can people do in their kitchens to avoid these problems?
Well,
and these injuries?
It depends on the client specifically. If the client is able to reach all the um, appliances and reach the cupboards properly, then there isn't as much of a concern as if somebody is in a wheelchair, for instance, and needs to access their kitchen. It makes more that needs to be assessed about and how to find the right solutions to meet their needs, to meet the needs that they have,
Okay. And we also mentioned previously with clutter blocking up, exits and things and making moving around difficult. But what happens if you need to evacuate during an emergency, say a fire? Obviously, clutter will be a problem in that case because you can't escape particularly easily. But what are some other things that people need to be aware of when it comes to emergencies?
Well, there's different, again, type of emergency is the concern that we have to face. It's important to have fire extinguishers for small fires in the kitchen. That would definitely help to alleviate having a big fire to spread throughout the house. But their fire extinguishers are very important. And having fire detectors and carbon monoxide is also an issue, a safety product that could be used to prevent all of the fires and to spread. Because if you're aware of it, then you can address it properly.
Prevention is more important prevention with everything is more important, I guess, than having to deal with the aftermath or during the emergency.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something that I am totally involved with is emergency preparedness. We are doing a big neighborhood instruction just for awareness, and we're doing a lot in that area. Well, this was something that I have more of a problem with because I'm in an apartment building. And in an apartment building is a completely different issue than you would find in a home. I don't have problems because it's all maintained by the maintenance department. So they come in on a monthly basis and assess the fire hazard situation for every apartment. But in the home, it's important to have smoke detectors on each floor and close to each bedroom. It's important to have carbon monoxide detectors close to fireplaces and to gas burning appliances and even the gas furnaces. So those things, it's important to keep in mind. Smoke detectors are a big safety a safety device that could be very helpful in an emergency.
Yes. It's a lot easier to escape when it's a small fire, or it's a lot easier to put out if there's a small fire, rather than waking up to being completely engulfed, unfortunately. So how often should we be, if you have a home where you do need to check the fire alarm and the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors, how often should we be doing that?
Well, it's good to check them on a monthly basis to make sure that everything is working properly. It's recommended twice a year to check and change your batteries if they're battery operated. If like in my apartment, it's all electronic. It's all connected to the electrical system. So there's no batteries to be changed. So they last for a 10-year period before they are replaced. So there's a lot of different things that need to be looked at, but it's a very simple, a simple thing to do. And it prevents a lot of issues if they are well maintained at the bank.
I personally find that so I'm not very short, but I'm a bit short. I like to say I'm on the short end of average, and I have to get a step ladder to go and get the fire alarm. We don't have particularly high roofs or ceilings, but I still have trouble actually reaching all the way to the top and being able to see well enough to remove the fire alarm to check it. So I imagine for anyone who is shorter than myself or, has difficulties climbing ladders, it could be difficult to actually, maintain the fire alarms yourself.
Well, yes, it could be an issue, especially if you're in a wheelchair. But that's when you need to get the help of a friend or a family member or somebody that lives in your building to come and check the things that need to be done on a monthly basis. There isn't a lot to do. You just need to reach up to fire and test the battery. So you can do that with a broom handle and reach the button, press it with a broom handle. But that's just one of the ways you could go around the not being able to reach it on a ladder.
That's a good point. I have been getting on my ladder to go and reach up to it and check it, but I think a broomstick's a bit easier than getting my ladder out.
That's how I fix that. That's how I do mine.
Very smart, very smart. So do you have any other recommendations that can be combined or improved or that improve this particular practice?
There's several different things that can be done to improve the practice. Of course, we're talking about fire alarms. There's also, as we mentioned earlier, carbon monoxide detectors that also need to be used, especially if you have gas-operated equipment in the home. So those need to be checked. It's important to have emergency contact information in case there's a fire, because you need to be able to reach the fire department, to have them come to your home and to so those things, if you have their number in a safe place where you can easily access it, then that would be a benefit. It's important to have secure windows and secure doors so that they are closed and prevent the fire from spreading quickly. Flammable material is another issue that we could look at if you have curtain close to a range is not a good situation to be in. So you have to look at where you have sources of fire or heat that could cause fires. Having an emergency plan. If you're on in a home and you have more than one floor in your home, it's important to be able to know where to meet and where to go. And if you have to use a window to go out, or if you can do an evacuation during, you can do the evacuation with the through a normal route and through normal doors. There are things that can be used if you are on a multi-story building. There's evacuation chairs that are possible to use and have the product is a very good evacuation product to easily move people that are in a wheelchair, for instance, to go down several stairs. So those are all important things that need to be considered as well to prevent fires in the home.
Yes, definitely. In my apartment, so I do live in an apartment. It's just off the first floor, so we're not too high up. But we've only got one exit and one balcony exit. So I always wonder, if we had a fire, would we just jump off the balcony? It's not very safe, I don't think. And we don't have anything like an evacuation chair, unfortunately. We also don't have a lift, which isn't very good.
A lift you're not supposed to use in an emergency in a fire. They are usually sealed up so that they don't operate. When the fire alarm is on, they don't operate. So that's one of the things that you have to be aware of as well. In the building, there's emergency evacuation plans, and they explain where you should go and where you should meet and where the alarms are and all these things in place. The evacuation chair, you're on the first floor. It's too difficult, but there are a lot of things people in taller apartment buildings that evacuation chairs would be a big benefit to have in an apartment building.
Yes, I imagine so. So I imagine that, different abilities, different disabilities, and different ages, they need different things. You mentioned before that, people with low vision maybe need less clutter on the ground, whereas people who use wheelchairs, they might need a different kitchen layout. So what kinds of different abilities and disabilities are we talking about today?
Well, there are several disabilities that you need to consider. In the Statistics Canada, we have a group of disabilities that we have highlighted. We have 10 different types of disabilities. So the first one, of course, is vision. Someone that has low vision or is blind is very more at risk in so many different ways because they are not aware what's happening around them. There are people with disabilities for hearing. So with alarm systems in place, they would have difficulty hearing. So there are alarms that are used that have a strobe light so that they could see that there's alarm being rung with them not being able to hear it. So that's one of the things that disabilities with hearing is being mentioned. There are people with mobility issues. So that is a difficulty for many people, not just because, seniors as well as people with disabilities. have a hard time to move around in the home, and to in an emergency, they need special care to get out and to evacuate properly. But another disability is flexibility. Flexibility is another issue that disability that we have listed in our group of 10. This is the number 4th on the list. And flexibility is something that people have difficulty moving and straightening up. And, flexibility can be a difficulty because of the muscles and in the limbs, and it causes a lot of difficulties. There's also dexterity, which is number 5th group. Dexterity can also be an issue for a lot of people, especially those with arthritis, that causes pain in the joints and in the fingers, and they have a difficulty moving their fingers in order to grab things and to be able to open jars and to do different things using their hands. We also have pain as a number 6 issue. Pain can affect people in so many different ways. It could be in their limbs, it could be in their joints, it could be in their muscles, and sometimes it's not even detectable, but you have pain, and so that's one of the disabilities that are not they're not visual. Other types of disabilities are dealing more with the mental side of things, and this is number 7 is a learning disability that causes issues. So looking at a learning disability makes it an issue in a home situation where you're trying to assess the space, but also the individual, to know what they need to protect them and keep them safe. There's also in the developmental side, there's the 8th disability. As well as mental and psychological disabilities, which would be number 9. And number 10 is memory. So all these can affect you. You can have some certain amounts of each and affecting you in a lot of different ways. For myself, if I may, I had a stroke, and I have problems in a lot of areas. I go down the list, I cover most of the issues in that list because I have dexterity problems. I have movement and mobility problems. And being a senior, I'm having problems with my hearing. So all these things take effect on a person. And that is important when you're doing assessments for this.
Yes. Quite a few of those, I think, I thought about, I think mobility is a big one that we think about a lot. But I think a few of the other ones, learning disabilities, that's not something I think that comes to mind, when I'm thinking about disabilities and when I'm thinking about changes we have to make to the home. And we do discuss, I think, a lot of the more physical things, removing clutter to prevent trips and things. But what kinds of changes do you need to make for someone with a learning disability or someone with a mental disability?
Well, a good example is this. In our assessment, we have a checklist that we go down and do. I have 200 questions that I can ask to make a proper assessment. And that's not a complete list. There could be other things that are even added to that. But that is something that is comprehensive enough to cover most things. But we also have about 60 questions that are completely directed for somebody who has problems with dementia or Alzheimer's. So some kind or any other kind of mental disability. You need to make sure certain things are in place so that the dangerous areas are kept out of reach. For instance, doors to down the staircase, for instance, that to keep the door locked, something simple like that. But it's something that could be very but difficulty for somebody. If they have a problem, they could fall down the stairs and could have severe injuries because of it.
Okay. Interesting. Lots of things I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, well, there's as I say, there's a lot of disabilities that people see and disabilities that are not seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but they are still something that is important to
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to move to the open mic section now. So the open mic section is where we get you, the guest, to talk about something that you're passionate about. And it doesn't have to be related to our topic, but it can be related if you like. Did you have something in mind?
well, I have a lot of things that I'm involved with as to keep my life afloat, if you will. But I am particularly interested in the area of 3D printing, which is something that I've been involved with now for a year and a half. And I have been a volunteer for a society that makes devices, assistive devices for people with disabilities. And the 3D printing is something that we have, that I have been involved with. We make all kinds of prints. And this is an example. This is the base for a switch.
Mm-hmm.
It would be attached to a table or to something. It has holes. It could be attached in any position. It has channels that can be used to insert the electronics involved. So we have some more components that we print to hold the electrical components in place. And then we have a cap, which is just a small that sits on top. And so it makes a switch and you turn something on and off. And a lot of the things that these are used for would be to operate an on-off switch on a toy or a something of that nature for children. And we do a lot of printing for that purpose. But we also do all kinds of other things. We talked earlier, Gabriella, about you talked about having something open a pack for your medication.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that we make for people to separate or to cut their pills in half. So it's a small little thing, but it works quite well. Cuts the pill in the half and allows you to take a lesser dose. So there's a lot of things we make. This one is for a toothpaste or a toothpaste tube. So you would put it through the grooves, and you would push this along to put all the toothpaste at the one end. You see, and there's two different styles. I have one as well that has one slot, which I use for toothpaste. And this one has two slots, a different in style. I use that for ointments and that sort of thing. So they can be used, a small thing that we do for my business, because I do 3D printing, a small little gift for people to remember us by. This is another convenient thing for people that has problems with dexterity. This is a button holder. So you would put it through the buttonhole in one side and catch the button and pull it through. So that's a little thing for someone with dexterity issues. And we also make, so many things, but this is a clip. So if you have a bag that needs to be sealed that doesn't have a Ziploc, you can clip these. They come in different sizes. The interesting part about this is all printed in one print. It's not assembled or anything. It is only printed, and all the joints and it's all done, and it locks into place and pulls the bag closed. It's a very interesting process. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm in the process of printing the switch bases behind me.
Oh, wow.
There's my
I can
print
see it moving.
there. Okay. Let me see if I can get closer. And this simple process, it works on a 3-dimension scale. So you have 3 axes, and the machine knows where it's positioning. So it's all programmed, and it works with the filament. Then it melts it melts the filament and puts it in place.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
You have a heated bed, and the filament is heated to the nozzle, and so that's how it is made, and it becomes, part like this.
That's great.
What can I say about it? It's an interesting process for myself, because I used to be a quality technician, and we used similar equipment like that called a CMM machine, and it was to measure parts, not to actually make it. But it works on the same principle. So it was a natural transition for me, now that I'm disabled, to have something that I am quite familiar with and have something working there on a daily basis. It fills my life very, very much, because, as I said, I have printed already 50 of these bases, and each base takes about 2 hours to print. So I printed quite a few. I'm in a group that does that. The organization that we have is called the Neil Squire Society, and they make all kinds of devices for people with disabilities. And the group, there are other people within the group, and they have been helping. We are in the process of making a collection we're going to make 100 of these switches. So we need all the components, and we need all the parts necessary.
So if people want, I'm guessing that if people want these types of, printed products, if they're in Canada, can they just reach out to you and ask you for them? Or, can they order them from your website for a price?
Well, that's a possibility. It depends what you're looking for, of course. But you could always reach me from my website or from my email address.
Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes so people can find them.
Okay. Another thing that I've been involved with is prosthetics.
Cool.
I am just starting to join a group that makes prosthetics, and they reach out globally to different organizations. And one in particular is called Victoria Hand Project, and it comes from Victoria in Vancouver Island here in Canada, and they are reaching out to many countries, such as Uganda, which I'm involved with, Uganda and India as well. So I have connections there in the groups that I follow and work with and associate with. So there's a lot of interest in the 3D printing and what it can do for people in third world worlds that have no access to a lot of things, especially prosthetics.
That's amazing. I've seen a lot how 3D printing can make some things that were previously very expensive and very inaccessible much more accessible. So that's great that you're involved in all of that, and you certainly sound incredibly busy.
Yes, very. There's a lot of areas where I volunteer. I work. We do a lot of emergency preparedness in our area, in our neighborhood, in our community. I belong to some volunteer groups. I'm working with the Neil Squire, and I'm also working with my business and operating my business and dealing with the people that work for me, my employees. One of the things that we are involved with is finding employment for people with disabilities. And I have 4 people within the groups that are disabled. And so 50% of our company is dealt with and taken care of through people with disabilities. So we try to incorporate as much as we can to reach out to people and to do the most.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that.
Well, it's, as my motto said, it's a place for all.
Exactly.
And that's why the name Accessible Places is a place for all. It shouldn't be a restriction. It shouldn't be a deterrent, or it shouldn't be a barrier. It should be helped along as much as possible, because people with disabilities have the possibility of doing a lot of things and can have a decent and fulfilling life as well.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing that with us today. I think that's really important to know that we're not just we're trying to make the world accessible for all, and we're trying to make our homes and our spaces more accessible, and doing it through, a lot of your work. So thank you for sharing that with us today. Thank you. So you did mention before that if people want to get in touch with you, they should go to your website and your email, which we will put in the show notes. Is there anywhere else that people can reach you, or you'd like people to reach you?
That's the best.
The best way?
For myself. Yeah, best way is through email or through the website, because we have everything in place there to either purchase things, order things, but we also have a full list of the services we provide, and it's available there for you. And if there's any questions, I'm always available by telephone as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking to me today. It was, I've learned so much and I've got lots to think about.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and and all that you've done and discussed with me today.
Thank you. You've been listening to On the House, produced by the Household Management Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at hm.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Joustra. Thanks for tuning in.